Welcome, everyone. My name's Marvin Jenkins, and I'm the coordinator for the Women's Business Center for Maryland Capital Enterprises. And we are a nonprofit organization, and we assist women entrepreneurs who are either beginning or starting a new business or want to enlarge their existing business. We service the Eastern Shore of Maryland, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, and Anne Arundel County. And we offer a lot of educational programs like the one you're going to see today. Plus, we have a lot of we do a lot of one-on-one counseling, consulting, and we also offer loan assistance packages. We work with help with business plans, cash flow analysis, and that type of thing. So. Today's recording, I'll send a link out once the recording is completed, so you'll get that, and you'll get all my information as far as how you can get in touch with me if you have any questions about the presentation. So without taking up any more time, I'm gonna this is part one of the MBE, DBE, SBE workshop, and we're fortunate to have Rosalind Davis, who's the expert in this subject, and we appreciate her time doing this for us. And with that, I'll turn it over to Rosalind, and she can tell you a little bit about herself, and we can get going.
Hey, thank you, Marvin, for that introduction. And again, thank you to Lisa Twilley and the Maryland Capital Enterprise Women Business Center for always hosting this workshop. It's a very important workshop. It helps small businesses get prepared to submit their application for the MBE, DBE, and SBE certifications. So with that, I'm going to go on to the next slide. So here is the agenda.
Rosalind, I think you've got your the notes section showing up also. It's not the agenda. Yep.
There we go. Okay, let's see here. Can you see that?
No, I think I don't see anything now other than all the participants.
Okay, so let me share again. Yeah,
let's see what happens here.
Yeah. Let's share again. Thank you for that.
Oh, I think that's got it.
There we go. Yep. We're good there?
Looks good to me.
All right. Let's try this again. So, all right. Can you see the agenda slide?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so this is the agenda for today. This is, again, a part one of a two-part series. The first part is to just get you through being familiar with the application overall, and then the first 4 sections of the application, because I consider it as 2 sections. The first part is basically ask you for all your information and ask you to answer a bunch of questions. And then the second part is actually provide the documentations to support that information. So just starting the process, give me 1 second. I'm going to do something on the little different. There we go. So start the process. Here on this particular screen, you will notice that this is for the MBE, DBE, ACB, DBE, which is the airport concession, and SBE. So Maryland MDOT has a uniform certification application so that if you want to submit for MBE and DBE, and let's say SBE, you can do that under one application versus separate applications for each one of those certifications. I highly recommend that you do the uniform certification application so that you don't have to submit those documentations separately. Okay, the first thing you would do is make sure that you have an account with MDOT. And then once you start your application, it's going to ask you is this a new certification application? And then you would say your firm is not currently certified with MDOT, so you would have to create an account. Here you will put in your tax ID number, which is your IRS employee ID number that you get from the IRS. Do a lookup, and because this is a new application for you, your TIN will not be able to be found. And you'll get this highlight here that says a match was not found. Click continue to enter the remaining information to create an account. So here, what I'm using is a company that I was able to use their screenshot. So I thank you, Slave to Success, for providing me this opportunity to actually use some screenshots to show during this workshop. So this individual put in their business name, they put in the company type, and then they put in their email, their phone number, and the address, because those were all mandatory fields as depicted by the red asterisk. So your company contact information, now it's asking for your first and last name. And here's where you will have to create a username. It could just be your first and last name, but also your phone number. And then you have to create a password so that when you start your application, you'll be able to go back and log in and check the status of your application or finish it if you haven't completed it in one session. So you'll get to this welcome screen, and this welcome screen says these are the certification programs for which MDOT is responsible for. Again, this is the DBE, SBE, MBE, and ACDBE certifications. Highlighted here, once again, it talks about the uniform certification application for firms that want to get both certifications at one time. And down here at the bottom, you would select MBE, or if you want to go for both, or MBE. So on this one, you would just click the MBE certification, and later on, it will ask you to do MBE, SBE, and DBE. So there is an eligibility requirement in order to submit an application and be approved. So let's go over that right now. First of all, you have to be 51% owner of your company. It has to be socially or economically disadvantaged individuals. Minority status, as you can see here, and this is for MBE program only. So this does not disqualify you if you don't meet one of these categories for small business enterprise or airport concessions or for another one. Now, your personal net worth, it's saying it has to fall below 1.9. Maryland has just increased this. So hopefully this will be able to increase the eligibility pool for MBE, DBE, SBE certification small businesses. And where it says management and control, it's saying that you have to possess the power to direct or cause the direction of the management and policies of the firm to make day-to-day decisions. I highlight this here because later on, when I talk about resumes, it's important to make sure that that language right there, management and policies of the firm and make day-to-day decisions, is in your resume. So the DBE, ACB certification eligibility standards, we kind of went over the ownership, the minority status, and personal net worth. Now the size standards, it's saying your 3-year average gross receipts cannot exceed 30.40 million, and those are the SBA size standards. I think for most businesses that are just starting out, and this is a new application for you, you probably will not exceed these gross receipts. Again, it goes over the eligibility standards, and this is just to kind of reinforce to make sure that you are eligible before you continue to go through the application. Now we're going to get into some required information and documents. Again, this is just the required information, and the document section for part 2 actually is where you will provide proof. Now, I highly recommend that if you haven't done so, to download the applicable company structure checklist. So they have some for LLC, sole proprietorships, corporations. Find what type of company structure you have and download that checklist so that you can keep it alongside while you're doing your application. Now, two of these documents, as you can see, they have to be notarized. And so I highlight that there in red. So you have to get notarized an affidavit of certification. There is a form that they want you to fill out and get that notarized. Once it's notarized, then you will upload it. You also need some state business registration documents. So this could be your articles of incorporation. This could be your SBA and goods, your not your SBA, your good standing certification. Resumes, again, anyone that is part of the ownership and leadership of your company, you will need to upload those resumes. Proof of citizenship, you need a government issue ID with a photo. Your personal net worth statement, there is a form that you fill out. And again, this is one of those forms that has to be notarized. I highly recommend not getting this PNW statement notarized until you have completed another section, which we'll go through, because you need to make sure that the information on your personal net worth statement matches a question that you answer here in part 1 of the application. You also need 3 to 5 years of your personal tax returns and 5 years of your business tax returns. And I will explain to you in workshop part 2, if those particular years don't apply to you, what do you need to do? Because you do have to answer every question. If you don't, that's where your application will get returned, and you'll have to have a delay in having your application submitted. Now, your bank signature authorization form or letter, it needs to be on your bank letterhead saying that this is a business account, and it has to have your business name listed on that letter. Now, your vehicle title or registration and insurance info for your business, if you use your POV or other type of vehicle for your business, you will need that also along with the insurance. And then licenses and contracts, that is licenses such as a registered nurse or electrician or plumber, things like that. And then contracts, we'll get into the top 3 contracts that they're requesting for your application. At any point, when I get from one section to another, I will take a pause and see if there's any questions versus waiting until the end. So I will take a pause right now. And Marvin, are there any questions?
Let's see. Yeah, we've got one that says, we're not a Maryland-based firm, but are already certified as a DBE. Are we automatically registered as an MBE and SBE?
No, you're not. Because I don't know, where did you get your certification? Where did they get their certification from?
It really doesn't say. They can unmute themselves and hop in, and they want to know. Let's see. It's Brian. Did you want to answer that question? Where did you actually get your certification? What state?
Okay, so while we wait on Brian, Maryland has started some reciprocal applications and certifications with other states, but they also, Maryland has the uniform certification application, which will allow you to get the MBE, DBE, and SBE under one application. So if in your previous state, if you've only done DBE, then that will not qualify for the MBE and SBE in Maryland.
That was the only question. There was another question. Will this slide deck be shared?
No, I do not share the slide deck, but the recording will be available.
That's correct. The recording will be sent out probably by tomorrow. So that's all the questions right now.
All right, well, moving along. So now you'll get to this screen where it says UCA submission. And because this is the first time you're submitting your application, you will see this. Your firm is currently certified by Maryland Department of Transportation, or your firm is not currently certified by MDOT. You will select it's not, and then the next screen you'll see is your firm is located in Maryland. And then it'll ask you if you're seeking that uniform certification application, the MBE, DBE, SBE, along with the airport. And then what you want to do is hit the button where you want to submit for a uniform application. Now there's some other options there if you only want to submit for MBE and SBE. So you can click those buttons if they apply to you. But for this particular workshop, we're going to focus on the uniform certification application. So here, when you come to this screen, again, it talks about the application. It talks about the investigation. These are the steps that your application would go through. For one is the application. You as the applicant will submit your application through their system. It is an online system, and all documentation and questions have to be answered online. Once you hit submit, it'll go through an investigation. And then it'll do an evaluation, and then it'll do a determination. So this whole process could take anywhere to 3 to 4 months. So I would just suggest that you be patient and give the reviewers time to review your application. But going through this workshop will help to make sure that you understand what you need to submit in your application. So hopefully there won't be any kickback and delay in your processing of your application. So your company and contact information, it will be pre-populated because you've already filled that out from the previous screen when you started the application. Now, this is intended as a general overview to see if your firm should apply. So it's going to ask you these questions. Again, is your firm at least 51% owned? Are you at a disadvantage? And do you meet the small business standards of having those gross annual receipts below those numbers? Now, if you can answer yes to all those, proceed. But if you are a not-for-profit business, then this certification application does not apply to you. So you have to be for-profit. So in addition to completing the form, you also have to submit some documentation. And again, we'll go through what those documents are. They have mandatory documents, and then they have, if applicable, documents. And we'll cover those in more detail in part 2. Now, one thing I want to point out on this screen is once you start your application, you'll see down here that you have a timeline. In this particular application, they had 83 days to complete it. It'll give you a date as to when all your information should be submitted. If you don't meet this deadline, your application will be kicked out and you'll have to start over again. So it's very important that you record these dates so that you can complete your application and get it through the system. Now, here's a list of the mandatory documents. Again, that affidavit of certification, this is that notarized form that you'll need along with your personal net worth. Those top 2 documents are the ones that have to be notarized. You also have to have your business federal tax returns for the past 5 years. You also your personal tax returns for the past 3 years. Your proof of good standing status with Maryland. So you will have to have that certificate. Unfortunately, hopefully your certificate is in good standing, which typically comes out around the mid of April is when we have to certify or pay for our business license every year with Maryland. And then you also need identification documents, your proof of citizenship. Again, it has to be a government issued photo ID, bank authorization. Your proof of contributions, we'll go through that. Basically, is just asking if you have invested any money into your business. You'll need the resumes of all your officers and key personnel, and I'll go through those in more detail. And then you'll also need some year-end financial statements, which we'll explain. your articles of organization, original amended operating agreements, and your profit sharing agreements. These are all mandatory documents, and in part 2 of the workshop, I will go through step by step in more detail what information is required. Now, there are also, if applicable, documents, and this is based on your company type. For instance, licenses, license renewal forms, and permits. If you are an electrician or a plumber or other licensed professional, this is where you would need this. This is not referring to like a project management professional certificate or anything like that. These are actually licenses, or if you're a child care provider and you need to have license, that's what it's asking for there. You also need your quarterly state unemployment tax wage report. So if you're already employing personnel, you should have this quarterly unemployment tax wage report. But again, this is if applicable. If it doesn't apply, I will show you how to identify that a particular document doesn't apply, so that to make sure that you cover all the bases and get your application through the process. It'll also ask you, have you ever been decertified? And then it'll ask if there's any leases, a loan, a distribution, other type of written agreements, perhaps if you are a subsidiary of another company. Equipment and or vehicles owned. This is for your business. For instance, if you have a box truck or a warehouse truck or something, that's what they're asking for. Vehicles and titles, these are for your personal vehicles that you may be using for your business. And the copies of the 3 job contracts. This is the highest contracts that you had, the top 3, not all of them. And then any trust agreements that you may have with another company where they are claiming disadvantaged status. And your business plan. I recommend that because this is a if applicable document, that you say it doesn't apply, because less is better. Because if you submit your business plan and they find some errors in your business plan, it's going to delay your application. So that's my recommendation, because this is if applicable. I'll show you how to check the box that says that this doesn't apply. And again, with all meeting minutes, because this is if applicable, I'll show you how to check the box that says it does not apply. So when you see this main summary page of the application, you will fill in each of the sections as noted below. The business name will already be pre-populated along with your contact person. Because this is the start of the application, it's going to show incomplete. And again, there's that date there in red, September 25th of 2023. That is the date on which your application needs to be submitted. Otherwise, it will be deleted from the system. So over here on the right, it says the question color for coding. As you go through this first section of your application, you will see that there are some required documents, there's some optional documents, and then once you have completed the questions, it'll show green for complete. I highly recommend that you continue to hit save after you complete each section, because systems do time out, systems do hit a glitch, and you don't want to get to 2 hours of work and then find that your information was not saved. So this is what the first part of your application will look like. Right now, because none of these questions have been answered, it's all red, meaning it still needs to be complete. And for instance, section 1, certification information, basic contact information. If you look over here, it's incomplete. It's saying that there are 8 required questions and there's only 3 optional. So as you complete those questions and you come back to the section, you'll see that this turns green, and we'll go through that. I'm going to pause right there. Marvin, are there any questions so far?
No other questions so far.
All right, we're going to move right into section 1, the certification information. So here is where it's asking for your basic contact information, your contact person and title. So for me, it's Rosalind Davis, it's president and CEO. As you can see over here to the right, it is a required question to be answered. And then once I answer that question, it will turn green to show that I have completed it. The legal name of the company, again, it's a required field. Phone number, other phone number, email. So you'll see what's required and what's optional. Again, this is my recommendation. If there's some information that's optional, I leave it optional. I do not fill it in because less is better. And that's just less information for someone to review and find some errors with. So here's what the screen will look like when you go back and check the status of your application, where you're at. You'll see that for this particular example, the first section has been completed and you'll get the green check mark. And again, as you go through and fill out each of these sections and complete them, those will turn green. All right. So certs and applications. Here's where it's going to ask you indicate the type of certification for which you want to apply. So DBE is highlighted here. And if you want to airport concession, you would check that box as well. But you do have to answer that question. As you can see, it is a required question. And then it says, is your firm applying for the MBE certification? Answer that. SBE certification, answer that as well. And then is your firm currently certified for any of the MDOT programs, the DBE or ACDBE? And if so, you would click yes and answer the question. But if no, just click no, because it is a required question. Now it asks, indicate whether your firm or persons listed in this application have ever been denied a certification. It is a required question, or if you have withdrawn an application because it's been debarred or suspended. Okay, moving on to section 2. Section 2, give a concise description of the firm's activities. For this particular company, it was Slave to Success. They specialize in leadership development and training consulting services. It could just be that simple. It doesn't have to be an elaborate drawn out of everything that you do. Your North American Industry Classification Codes, which is NAICS codes. You can go to the census.gov and find the particular NAICS codes that apply to your business. And then if you have some additional NAICS codes, you can enter it here in the optional field. Question 2A is asking for your primary NAICS code. Again, you can go to census.gov and look up NAICS codes. And this firm was established on, and we've owned this firm since. Those dates can be the same or they can be different. It just depends on when you establish a firm versus when you actually started it. But the established could be a later date that you actually officially stood up your company. And then the method of acquisition, I would just say started a new business. Or you can look at the other ones, if it was gifted to you, if it was owned by a merger or consolidation. So answer as applicable because it is a required question. Now here it asks you again, is this a for-profit? Because if it's a not-for-profit business, then this application does not apply. Put in your federal tax ID number, and then it'll ask for your legal business structure. Number of employees. Don't forget to include yourself as at least one of these employees, probably a full-time, and then you'll include either part-time or seasonal. Now, this particular section of the firm's gross receipts for the last 5 years, this is where you have to enter the last 5 years, so starting with 2023, 22, 21, 20, and 19. For this particular year, if you have no receipts to report as of yet, just put 1 because you can't leave it 0. So put the number 1. And which will allow you to answer that question because it is a mandatory question. Any questions so far, Marvin?
No other questions?
All right. So other businesses, this is asking if your business is co-located with another one. If you have a post office, a storage space, warehouse facility, answer this question appropriately. If your firm has ownership interest in another firm at the present time or in the past, again, answer and because it's a required question. And additional with the last question as well. More mandatory questions. I'm not going to read through all of them, but as you can see how the difference between the mandatory versus optional. The mandatory is always read. All right, section 3, majority owner information. You have to select the button that says add the owner so that you can add yourself if you are the owner. Put in your name, your first name, and then include your background information. Ownership interests, number of years as the owner, percentage owned, class of stock. If it's not applicable, just put not applicable. And the date acquired is the date acquired of the company. And again, these are all mandatory questions. Initial investment to acquire the ownership. If you, for instance, put in a large dollar sum, let's say $50,000 or so, you would put that in, but just buying basic supplies, things like that, that's not a cash contribution that you would include on this particular question. Now describe how you acquired your business. Was it gifted to you? Did you inherit it? Or did you just start the business yourself? Most people just say you started the business yourself. Kind of keep it simple. Any other relationships with owners or owners' employees? Answer appropriately. And then answer the last mandatory question on this page. Okay, does the owner or owner work for any other firms? Because this question was already answered, just going through the application, it's now green because it's been completed. Now, what I want to call your attention to on this particular screen is question 4A, is the personal network. At this point, unless you've already completed the personal network statement form, you're not going to have this answer where right here where it says $500. This is just a placeholder. So in order for you to get through the application to turn this mandatory question into green, I would suggest just putting a figure in here, but once you complete your personal net worth, make sure that those two numbers match. And part 2 of the workshop, I will show you where that information needs to match with this particular question. All right, section 4, control officers and boards. If you have any officers of your company, for instance, you're the president, you could be the president, you could be the board of directors, you can be everything here on this screen, which is perfectly okay, but these are all required questions. If you have a president and a vice president, you would list those accordingly. Management personnel. Duties of the owners, officers. Here is asking again, if you are the president, it's asking for your ethnicity, your gender, percentage owned, and then the frequency of how often you manage that information. You could be the same person in all of these fields, so don't feel as though you have to find a different name for each one of these, but it is a required questions. Okay, indicate your firm's inventory of equipment and vehicles. Again, this is business equipment and vehicles. For instance, if you have U-Haul trucks or box trucks or things like that, or if you own forklift equipment, that's what it's asking for in question 4C1. If you have office space, for instance, if you're like leasing a daycare facility or leasing a warehouse space or something like that, that's what it's asking for, not your office space in your home. And then storage space, the same thing. All right, moving on to financial information. Does your firm rely on any other management functions or employee payroll? Answer appropriately, yes or no, but it is a mandatory question. Financial information is asking for your business banking information. Again, there is a form to upload once you get to it. Bonding, if you are a construction company, it's where you would need your bonding information. If it doesn't apply, you'll just say no bonding. All right, licenses and contracts. Here's where you would list any current licenses and permits. Again, it could be plumbing, electrical, it could be daycare. This is where you would list the person of the license holder and their permit number. And then your 3 largest contracts. If there's none, just put no contracts in the last 3 years. It's perfectly acceptable. And then use the last 3 largest active jobs on which your firm is currently working on. If there is none, it's okay to put no projects at this time. Now, once you answered all those previous questions, as you can see, most of this has turned green. There's still some more sections to be filled out, but again, as you complete each section, this will turn green. So this is sort of a visual representation where you're at in your application. So now we'll kind of go over those mandatory documents. Again, the affidavit, certification, your personal net worth are both documents that have to be notarized. You have to download them, sign them in front of a notary, and then you'll have to come back and upload them. Again, I'm not going to go through all these documents because I've already went over them, but I will go over them in detail in part 2 of the workshop, which is coming up on January 30th. Now, if applicable, these are the documents. If they apply to your particular business, I will show you how to mark that they do not apply. So then when you submit your application, they will not even be visible. Because if you don't say that they don't apply, the system will be looking for that particular document. Now, some key takeaways. So one thing I did not mention is the application is free. It's just time consuming, but applying for MDOT certification is free. I would consider using the uniform certification applications for the MBE, DBE, ACDBE, and SBE, so you don't have to do separate applications for each certification. And it is a 4-step process where you submit your application, it goes through a review, an investigation, and then a final determination. It takes about 90 to 120 days on average for an application to get through the system. And I would recommend downloading the checklist that applies to your business so that you can see what type of required information and documents is required before you start the application. And then your personal net worth, again, in that one section 4 where it just asked a question and it was asking for a dollar figure, you want to make sure that it actually matches the number that's listed on your personal net worth statement. And now part 2, is not November 14th, but part 2 is actually January 30th, 2024 at 12 o'clock Eastern time. And with that, that concludes this particular part 1 of the workshop. Here is my contact information. I invite everyone to connect with me on LinkedIn. And as Marvin stated, if you have any further questions, you can reach out to him and he can get a hold of me, or he may have the answer, or you can contact me via my email and or through LinkedIn.
Right, does anybody have any questions before we wrap up here? Like I say, you will be getting a link to the recording, so any of this information you can go back and if you missed any of it, you can go back and revisit it. Doesn't look like we have any other questions unless somebody in the next few minutes.
Hi, it's Tashana. I have a question. Ms. Davis, you said that there were different lists that we could download, and where would we find those lists on this slideshow?
So at the beginning, when you sign up for the MDOT application and create your username and password,
Yes, ma'am.
there's checklists at the beginning for you to download.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Anybody have any other questions? Rosalind, again, thank you. You're getting some comments here. Great presentation, very detailed. Thank you. Great presentation, very helpful. Thank you. So you're getting a lot of people getting a lot of information out of this. So again, we appreciate your time putting this presentation on for us. And I guess unless anybody else has anything else, we'll wrap it up. And hopefully you all register. Some of you have already registered for the next session on next Tuesday. So I'd please go out and register for part 2. And other than that, do you have anything else, Rosalind?
No, Marvin, I don't. Thank you very much again. Thank you for you and Lisa for providing this platform so this training workshop can take place.
Well, thank you. And again, everybody, please go out and register for part 2. And with that, we'll go ahead and end the presentation. Thanks again, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.